Hi everybody, this is Matt Howgate and I'm going to run you through a very short demonstration of the Compliance Champion. The Compliance Champion name is perhaps slightly misleading in that, yes, this covers compliance, but what it really is a management support system allowing you to pull everything you need for management purposes together into the same place and in a place where you have access to the knowledge of compliance and management experts like me who've designed the system and will update the system as things change in terms of, say, quality standards or legal aid contract requirements or even just regulation. This is a really powerful system. It's got a number of things which will make life a lot easier for you. The first is a management and compliance diary. I'll show you how that works in a while, but that's a place where you can diarise and allocate all of your relevant management and compliant tasks to either yourself or to other users of the system. Then we've created some monthly checklists. The monthly checklists are supposed to act as aid memoir to remind you of all of the things that you should have looked out for during the preceding month. It gives you an opportunity to confirm that you've done it, or if you haven't, to think about what you need to do it before you move into the next month or into the next month. Then what we've done is we've created a number of compliance designed and curated templates, records which are pre-populated with fields that reflect best practice and that allow you to keep records of, say, risk or complaints or client satisfaction, and to do so in a way which meets all of the relevant regulatory requirements. We've also created lots of space for you to upload management documents and to pull them all together into a single space, making it easier for, say, auditors to access or for other managers in the organisation, maybe for your trustees or for your successor in post. The person that takes over after you leave will have really easy access to all of the documents they need to fully understand how your law centre runs. I've already mentioned the fact that this system is developed by experts like me and David Gilmore and others, and that's really important because what it means is that as the rules change, whether those are SRA rules, OASC rules, SQM rules, Lexil rules, or legal aid agency rules, we'll update the system. We'll make sure the system always tracks current best practice and requirements from all of those whose regulation impacts on the work that we do in law centres. Okay, let me run you through some of the features. Now, what you can see on the screen is the homepage when you go into the Compliance Champion. The homepage always has an ad for the latest or the newest training that DG Legal are offering that might be coming up, and we'll update that periodically as we need to. But what you can see on the top left-hand side under calendar is the compliance diary. Now, what this allows you to do is to spend a bit of time when you first start using Compliance Champion to decide what needs to happen when across the year and who's going to do each bit. You can have multiple users within your organisation with access to Compliance Champion. So, for instance, as manager, you could be the primary user, you could have your senior solicitor or supervisors as users, you could have team heads, you could have other people in the organisation, including your chair of trustees, set up as users of Compliance Champion if you wanted to. And you can allocate tasks to each of them on the days that they need doing. Now, that seems relatively straightforward, and it is. But what it does is it means that you get reminders on those days of what has to happen. So as a manager, you can sit here on day one and you can work out when your policies need to be reviewed, when your risk register needs to be reviewed, when you need to look at funding changes, when you need to do variance analysis, and you can add all of the dates into the calendar here. And it's really simple. If you click on add event, it gives you an opportunity to put in the name of the person, the name of the event that's happening. So let's say review safeguarding policy. We don't need to worry about a department. The start date, well, we're going to do that, say, on the 1st of April. It finishes also on the 1st of April. I'm going to assign it to myself. And if I wanted to, I could put some notes in. When I save it, what will happen is it goes into the diary for that particular date. So if I run through, you'll see review safeguarding policy. But more than that, I get an email notifying me that it's been allocated to me. And then on the 1st of April, I get another email reminding me to do the task. That means that I can map across the year all of the relevant compliance or management functions, make sure they've been allocated, and make sure that the individuals are getting automated reminders at appropriate points. So that's a really powerful tool. The next is the monthly checklists, and we've split these between compliance and management. I'm going to look at the management one for now, but if you click on it, what it does is it gives you an opportunity to create a new record. So let's say we add a new one, and I'm going to just put it in for the current month, so February 2024. And what it asks is all of the questions that as a manager you should have been thinking about in the last month. So let's run through it. Have any new staff members joined? If no, and more often than not, it's no, that answer's already filled in, so you don't have to do anything. If it's yes, you can click on it. And then it says, has every staff member been issued with a contract of employment and a job description? Well, of course, the answer should be yes. But if the answer is no, you click on it and explain, and it sets out to allow you to explain what's needed, who's going to be responsible for it, and when it's going to be done. Have new staff signed confidentiality agreements? Have they received an induction? Have they been issued with a training plan? Again, for each of these, the answer should, of course, be yes, but if it's no, you get a chance to identify what's needed. Now, for the most part, this is about you thinking about what needs to happen in the context of all of these areas. If you move on to the next page, if you've got Lexel, it asks if you've done the relevant risk assessments for Lexel. For many of you who don't have Lexel, it's not applicable. Again, click onto the next one. Have you outsourced anything? Again, this maps over onto SQM and Lexel requirements. And again, if you have, it asks you to ensure that all of the registers have been updated. And if they haven't, you can explain why that is. Organisational management. This is more about whether there have been any issues that might have led to a claim. Again, this is just a quick aid memoir to help you understand the things that you perhaps should have been thinking about during the month. The next one is financial stability. Have you done a cash flow forecast? Have you reviewed variances? Have you reviewed compliance with any restrictions on grants? And if you have, great. If you haven't, then it will explain why, or it might not be applicable. Then you get into bank reconciliation. And lastly, issues around client money, which of course won't be relevant for all of you, but that's why you can put not applicable. And then you can finish the record. Now this is giving me a reminder that the full checklist needs to have been completed. So here I can say yes. And I've finished it. And now what you can see is I've got a full record of the fact that in February 2024, I looked at all of the relevant monthly issues that might vex me as a manager. Let's look at central records, and we'll just take a look at two of the records here. But what you can see is we've got records here for approved suppliers, client satisfaction, complaints, conflicts, outsourcing, referrals, risk management, undertaking, and website. Now, those of you with Lexel will recognise that some of these are requirements of Lexel, some are requirements of Lexel and the SQM, and some are just best practice. None of you will be operating without, for instance, client satisfaction registers or complaints registers. I'm just going to look at two. I'm going to look at the risk register and the complaints register. If I click on complaints register, you can see it creates a structure for managing complaints. Now we've got a template one in here, but I can add another one. So if I add another one, first of all, it asks me for a reference, the file reference, the name, who's handling it, who the complaint's about, or the caseworker handling the case. If you've got multiple offices, which office, details of the complaint. It gives categories, so you can work out where it fits within the categories here. And you can talk about whether it's been resolved, referred to the Ombudsman, what the outcome was, the date on which it was resolved, and any future remarks. So what we've done here is we've created a record based on best practice on what would be expected. If you're confused about some of these things, you'll see a help box on the right-hand side, and for each of these, we've put some very brief help records or help information, just to help you understand what should be saved in each place. Let's go back and look at another central record, the risk register. Now again, with risk, you can add various different types of risk, from governance, strategic, regulatory, operational, compliance, finance, competence, fraud and dishonesty. You add a record, and like the complaints register, it has lots of drop downs and boxes which ensure that for each risk you add all of the relevant information that you need. We can help you convert your existing risk register. In fact, most of the areas here have the ability to either upload or download as an Excel document. So if your existing risk register is in Excel, we can convert it to a comma separated value Excel document and upload it straight into the compliance champion. And we can do that with many of the records on here. So what you can see is where we've got central records, not only are they easy to use, but we've designed them to make sure you have all of the relevant information to hand, and that you're recording all of the information that a regulator or an ombudsman might want to see in the future. Let's look at compliance. Compliance is more a place for you to upload information and to keep information. Again, most of you will have or have done or be updating a data protection audit and processing record. Again, if we click on this, what you can see is we can add, and that allows us to put in all of the information about how data is being processed, where it's being processed, how long it's kept for, the legal basis we're keeping it for, who has access to it, who it's shared with, any conditions for processing, any consents and where that might be, where it's covered in a privacy notice and appropriate risks. Again, this is not something you're going to do on a daily basis, but periodically, particularly as you do, for instance, data protection impact assessments, you can use this to consider how you're saving data, how you're using data. If we click on governance and resources, this really is a place for you to upload information that might be useful. And again, what we've done is we've tried to identify the types of documents that are relevant to the management of a law centre or another organisation like a law centre, and give you a space to upload them. So for instance, you can put your business continuity plan here, or job descriptions. You can put your client care letter templates up there. You can put your software register if you've got one, staff lists, key documents that you might need, employment liability insurance certificates or other insurance certificates. All of those have a place that you can just upload them to. So if I click on, say, employer's liability certificate, it just gives me an opportunity to upload a document. And once it's uploaded, at least I know where it is. And if I leave the organisation and somebody takes over from me, they'll know where it is as well. It just helps with record keeping. File reviews is really only there if you're doing legal aid work, but what we've done is we've created either file review forms that you can use, so these are pre-structured forms that you can use for file reviews, or if you've got your own file review forms, you can just upload them in the way that I showed previously about uploading the insurance certificate. That way, all of your file reviews are in a central location. Imagine how much easier this is for an auditor, particularly one who is perhaps doing some of the audit off-site and some of the audit on-site, where they can just log into the system and see all of the records they need. For those of you with Lexcel, you'll know that you have to do annual reviews, and so we've created space for all of the annual reviews here on the Compliance Champion. So the one that often catches out law centres is the annual review of risk. If I click on it, what you can see is each of the areas that Lexcel requires you to review are covered, and you can fill them in and save the record, and then you've got your annual review covered. Organisational management, again, is a space for you to upload information that you might need. For instance, things like board agendas or reports or minutes. Things like your membership register. Many of you will have members and you need to keep a register of those. And a register of trustees or directors. Now, again, for some of you, they may be the same list, but some have much wider membership than they do trustees. So again, this is a great place to save that information. If I look, for instance, at the membership register, like so many of the other ones, we've created a template for that register, so you can just upload all of the information you need without having to think about structure. Another thing we've put in organisational management is a place for you to upload things like grant applications, grant award letters, and other grant documents and reports. Not because you have to, but because if we're creating a single space for all of your management information, it makes sense for us to make it as adaptable and usable as possible. I've certainly taken over organisations where it's been a real struggle to find copies of current grant letters with conditions of grants in it, particularly an issue where there are restrictions on the grants. Using this means that everything is in a single place that anybody in a management position in the organisation has access to. People management is an area that some of you may find useful, some of you may not. I'm very conscious that some law centres are already using really good HR management systems. But if you're not, this just creates more space for you to hold everything you need to do in relation to staff members, whether that's appraisal records, training records, sickness records, induction records, all of the other documents that you might need in relation to your staff members. Webinars and courses is really just a link to all of the latest webinars, courses and other resources that DG Legal have available. Not all will be relevant to law centres, but some will. And you can go on and see what future courses are coming up and also see videos of previous courses. And again, there are other resources on there that are going to be very useful for you. What is important to remember is that you can have multiple users on the Compliance Champion, but you can limit who has access to which bits. So for instance, you might want only your supervisors to have access to file reviews. You might want only certain managers to have access to the people management section and so on and so forth. That can all be done when we set the system up for you. The other thing to say is this is constantly evolving. The current format of the Compliance Champion is based on feedback we've received from law centres and other non-profit specialist advice agency users, and also, bluntly, the experience that David and I and others have had in helping advice agencies. Some of it may be dropped in the future if it isn't used, but we can also add new bits if people come to us and say it would be great if there was a section on X or a section on Y. Likewise, we can move things around to make it easy for people to understand where documents are. So this is a really agile system that we can develop to meet need. But hopefully what you can see is the power of Champion in relation to your role as a manager. It creates a space where you can save all of the management information that you need. For many of those bits of information, it creates a structure, and that structure is based on best practice and regulatory requirements, and we'll update that as those regulatory requirements and best practice change. The calendar allows you to diarise and allocate tasks across the year to make sure nothing slips through the net, and the monthly checklists give you a monthly aid memoir just to make sure you're asking the questions you should ask and checking the things that you should check. Hopefully this demonstration has been helpful. Obviously it's been relatively quick, but if you want more information about Compliance Champion, drop an email to the team at Leicester Evaluation. The email address is mail@leicesterllp.co.uk. That address should be on screen now. I'm sure they'll be happy to help. They'll also be happy to put you in touch with me if you want to ask me any questions. And as I understand it, Compliance Champion is free for the first 12 months to any law centre that is interested in taking it up. The other thing to mention is that this really is an iterative system, and we are very happy to adapt it based on feedback. Anyway, that's enough from me for now. Bye all.